A not-so-sweet debate is happening now concerning your health. The World Health Organization says the artificial sweetener aspartame, which is used in low-calorie products like sugar-free Jell-O and Diet Coke, is possibly carcinogenic to humans. That means that it could cause cancer. Aspartame has been widely used since the 1980s under brand names like NutraSweet and Equal. Meanwhile, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration says it's aware of the report, but that, quote, does not mean that aspartame is actually linked to cancer. Sugar abuse contributes to the many health issues that disproportionately impact us. And now the black community has to recognize that we have a long and complicated history of sugar use and abuse. According to historian Dr. Chantella Sherman, farming sugarcane helped fuel slavery around the diaspora. She says millions of poor black families used a very sweet evaporated milk mixed with water as baby formula for generations. Now, I think it's time for the black community to break our addiction to sugar, and I'm speaking about myself too, quite personally. We also have to start cultivating healthier habits for future generations. Joining me now is Dr. Yolandra Hancock, a pediatrician and a health and wellness expert. Doc, so good to see you. What are some of the tactics that the sugar industry uses to convince people to consume more? Because it feels like there's a strategy at play here.
Absolutely. I think it first starts with politics. I think that the sugar addiction is a legislated illness. We think about the Farm Bill and how we facilitate the growth of corn, and that facilitates the establishment of high fructose corn syrup. You find high fructose corn syrup even in baby formulas. And so it starts there with policy, but then it's perpetuated in the beverage industry, in the food industry, where we're just inundated with sugar. When you look at certain products, things that don't even make sense to have the levels of sugar that they do, like ketchup, further facilitate our sugar addiction. You know, I'm from Louisiana. My great-grandfather was a sugarcane sharecropper. So that article really hits close to home because we were enslaved because of sugar back during the time of slavery, but we continue to be enslaved by sugar given how addictive it is. There are studies that show that the same center of the brain that gets triggered with cocaine gets triggered with sugar, and that facilitates dopamine release. And when you release dopamine and it feels good, even with the strongest willpower, your body physiologically will still crave it. And this starts as early as in the womb. Taste preference actually begins in the womb. Our taste buds on our tongues are activated to be attracted to sweet. It's a survival mechanism. Breast milk is sweet. I'm going to search for what is sweet. But as we continue to perpetuate the cycle with the introduction early of juices and other sugary drinks with our children, and then we're doing it ourselves, we further continue to allow ourselves to be caught up as Black people in this vicious cycle.
Now, it's interesting because, growing up, I heard sugar was bad, but, I didn't understand. It's really not until I was an adult and really even a parent that I fully understood how much stuff has sugar in it and stuff that, I thought was healthy wasn't. And stuff that I counted as healthy, even if it was sweet, like certain fruits, I didn't realize how much sugar was in that stuff. So help us break it down. Sugar is in a cake. Sugar is in a cookie. We got that. Right. But where are some other places that sugar exists that we might not think about or might not appreciate?
You bring up a good point, particularly in terms of fruit, right? So there's this notion called the glycemic index and the glycemic load. The glycemic index, even for the healthy foods that we eat, like our fruits, there's certain fruits that have a higher glycemic index, meaning they have a higher load of sugar, even if it's fructose, which is a naturally broken down sugar. But it's also in consideration of how is that fruit packaged? Is there skin that we eat with that fruit? For example, watermelon, papaya, mango, some of my personal favorites, pineapple as an example, those are going to be your more high glycemic fruits, meaning when I eat it and my body processes it, it's going to release a higher amount of sugar than, say, for instance, something like an apple or a pear. And then you talk about glycemic load, it's what that fruit is composed of. It's not just the sugar itself, but the fiber that comes with it. Fruit juice is one of the biggest culprits. People assume that, I'm going to just drink this orange juice, this apple juice, this grape juice. And depending on which juice choice you make, it actually may have more sugar than even a soda. So as an example, there's certain brands, I won't name brands out because I don't want to get the griot in trouble, but there's certain cran hyphen fruit brand drinks, that a 16-ounce bottle will have more sugar than a 12-ounce bottle of soda. And so for us collectively, but particularly as parents, the most important thing is to pay attention to the nutrition label. The American Heart Association recommends that men consume no more than 9 teaspoons of sugar per day. Women consume no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar per day. And based on a child's age and caloric needs, that they consume no more than 3 to 6. But we know the average American consumes around 24 teaspoons of sugar a day. That's affecting our heart health, our mental health.
And I just to underscore that point, because I started reading labels, if there are sodas that will have 59 grams of sugar, which just that soda alone is more sugar than you're supposed to have in a whole day. The healthy fruit drinks, the apple juices, a good one in a 6-ounce juice box, might have 13 grams of sugar. That might be enough for you almost for the whole day. And then when you start talking about the pastas you eat, the breads you consume, the sauces, I've heard people say, I don't eat sugar, and they'll have a big plate of lasagna. I'm like, you know how much sugar is in that sauce and that roll you eating with the sauce? I don't care if you drink nothing but water, you're still not healthy. But here's the other thing. People started finding alternatives to sugar. They say, well, I'm going to do aspartame. I'm going to do, these alternatives to sugar because they are healthier. And that's also a problem. The National Institutes of Health found that 59% of black students drank sugary drinks like soda compared to a third of white students. So we got two issues here. One, we drink sugary drinks way too much. And then when we find an alternative, we think we're being healthier, but studies show it might not be.
Right. So last week, we're all abuzz about this aspartame concern based on a small agency within the World Health Organization. This agency specifically looks at cancer research. And what they said was that there is a possibility that there's an association between the consumption of aspartame and the risk of certain cancers. One of the things that it's important to understand is what were the studies that they looked at. There were 3 recent studies, what we call observational studies, where I look at a group of people, I look at what they're drinking, and then I make associations based on what they've consumed and what health outcomes they have. For all 3 of these studies, there was a higher risk of liver cancer and pancreatic cancer, but I put an asterisk next to it because the data that they looked at was artificially sweetened beverages, not specifically aspartame. They identified artificially sweetened beverages as a substitute for aspartame. And so we really want to think about that when we draw these conclusions. And from what the researchers said, it wasn't to say that it was potentially cancerous. It was to really put out a call to action to actually do more research, more scientifically prudent research, not just observational studies, but case controls. Those who drink sugary drinks, those who do not, those who specifically drink drinks that have aspartame in it, because you can't measure aspartame in the body. It's actually broken down into its basic components by the time we consume it. And these same components can be included with other foods that we may eat or drink, not necessarily linked to aspartame. And so there's definitely room for more discovery, more research in order for us to answer that question. But to your point, we have to be mindful of our consumption. Based on what they said, someone would have to exceed 9 to 12 cans of artificially sweetened beverage in order to exceed the daily limit, and very few people do that.
This is a structural problem. We need access to healthy foods. This is a legislative problem, as you pointed out. We need to regulate what happens so that people can have the context to make healthier choices. But then also we have to make healthier choices. And I'm glad you're breaking this down for us so we have the tools necessary to make those choices. Dr. Yolandra Hancock, thank you so much. She's a pediatrician. She's a health and wellness expert. She is. All right, family, we have reached the end of the show, but before I let you go, we talked tonight about black people and sugar. And yes, family, we need to eat better. We need to make better choices. We don't need to drink sugary beverages. We don't need the sodas and the juices. Yes, we can put the cake down. Yes, we don't need as many carbs. All of that stuff is good because we have disproportionately high blood pressure, diabetes, BMIs, which is racist, but still we'll talk about that. We have to make healthier choices. But family, never forget that healthier choices are not enough. We need systems and structures that allow people to have access to healthy choices. We need food secure neighborhoods. We need community gardens. We need affordable foods in our neighborhoods so people can make the healthy choice. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about the importance of people drinking the clean water And the likelihood that people would drink clean water if they had access to it. If you put dirty water there, they'll drink it if that's all they have. If you put clean water next to them, they'll drink that instead. But too often in our communities, we only give people dirty water, and then we get mad when they drink it. We judge them when we drink it. We dismiss them when they drink it. We punish them when they drink it. Let's give people clean options, healthy options, safe options. And you just watch. Like everybody else, black people will shine. We will thrive, and we'll make good choices.